بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of jurisprudential rules or maxims, al-qawa'id al-fiqhiyah. Last week we talked about qa'idatul tahara, and that rule is very helpful in different parts of fiqh. We use it. The idea was that unless you know something is najas, you can practically assume that it is tahir. But if you know it is najas, no. Or if it was najas before, then qa'idatul istisab says you have to continue. That's different. But if you don't have any knowledge about this thing, it's the first encounter, you don't know it is tahir or najas, you assume that it is tahir. And we discussed this. Some people ask me, does this apply also to meat? I don't know this is najas or tahir because I don't know it is halal or not. It's slaughtered Islamically or not. I said no, that is different. So today we will answer that question. The rule that we have today is qa'idatu suq al-muslimin. Suq means bazaar, market. Muslimin is Muslims. So this rule, which is very, again, well-established rule, and actually this is something that all Muslims follow, is that if you buy a meat or animal product from Muslim market, you don't need to investigate that it was properly slaughtered and zeb was done Islamically 100%. You don't need to investigate because you have purchased it from Suq al-Muslimin, from Muslim market. In Muslim market, the assumption is that they are themselves careful about these things. So if you buy meat or leather or anything which is from animal, from Muslim market, you can assume that it is halal and it is tahir. Halal is if you want to eat, and it is tahir if you want to touch it or use it as a part of, for example, leather, you use it as your dress and you want to say your prayer with that. So no problem. There are some hadiths that fuqaha refer to, but also there are other reasons that we can have, especially Siri Mutashari. I will explain later. But first, we start with some hadith. There is a Sahiha from Halabi, from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, authentic hadith. He asked Imam alayhi salam about the products that are purchased, for example, like some thing like boots from leather, that it is not like shoes, but something that they used to have it like a kind of dress, even praying with that. I don't know if you have seen, it's like a socket, socket. So Imam alayhi salam said, when he asked about these things which are sold in the market, Imam said, Ishtare wasall fiha. You can buy this and say your prayer in this. Hatta ta'lama annahu mayyitun bi'aynih. Unless you know that this particular one was mayyit, means it was not Islamically slaughtered. Either has been from a dead animal or they just slaughtered it. Because anything which is not slaughtered properly is mayyit. It doesn't need to have died by itself. It can be died, it can be killed, but it's not done proper zabh. So, if it is purchased from souk, from market, you may say, this doesn't say which souk, which market. But with the help of other hadiths, we realize that this is Muslim market, because it says as-souk, this alif and lam is for means the market which they had. And by the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, there were no mushrikeen. They were all Muslims. So that market was market of Muslims. There is another Sahihah that Fudail and Zurara and Muhammad ibn Muslim, three of them, ask Imam Baqir alayhi salam, and shira'il luhum min al-aswaq, buying meat from markets. Wala yudra ma sana'al qassabun. You don't know what butchers have done. Have they done zeb properly? They observed qibla, everything, or not? Imam Baqir alayhi salam said, Kul means eat. Kul idha kana dhalika fi suqil muslimin. Eat if this is in the market of Muslims. Wala tas'al an. Don't ask. Means you don't need to ask. Okay? It doesn't mean that if you ask it's haram. But it means that you don't need to ask. This nahi is not for prohibition. This nahi is for removing obligation. So when someone thinks that something is obligatory and say don't do it, means you don't need to do it. It's not that it's haram. So Imam says, Kul, eat if it is fi suq al-muslimin, in the market of Muslims, and you don't need to investigate. So if we go to a Muslim bazaar, a Muslim market, and we buy meat, we assume that this is halal. We can eat, we can touch, we can have it for prayer, for example, if it is leather, whatever it is. Another hadith is Sahihatu Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Nasr al-Bazanti. It's also authentic. He says, Sa'altuhu. He doesn't say the name, but ulama say someone like Bazanti never quotes from anyone other than Imam. So it must be Imam, although it is Mursaleh, but it is reliable. سألته عن الرجل يأتي للسوق فيشتري جبة فراء لا يدري أذكية هي أم غير ذكية أيصلي فيها. I asked Imam alayhi salam about a person who comes to the market and buys a leather cloak, a jubba from leather. And he doesn't know it is dhakiya. Dhakiya bidhal from tazkiya, means zebh. He doesn't know this leather is from animal which was slaughtered properly or not. Can he say his salat in this dress? Because if it is not Islamically properly, slaughtered, it becomes mayyit, and meat, you cannot have meat as dress with you when you are praying. Okay? If you have a leather which is from meter, you cannot have that as a belt or as a coat or as a jacket or whatever. Imam alayhi salam said, Na'am. He asked, Ayusalli fiha? He can say his prayer? Imam said, yes. Laysa alaykumul mas'ala. You don't need to ask. إن أبا جعفر عليه السلام كان يقول. Then Imam عليه السلام quotes from Imam Baqir. إن الخوارج ضيقوا على أنفسهم بجهالتهم. Khawarij made life difficult for themselves because of their ignorance. They kept questioning and asking, finding out whether something is halal or not, making life difficult. إن الدين أوسع من ذلك. Religion is more accommodating, or you can say more inclusive, and that means this Sharia of Islam is not something to make life difficult and miserable. Another Sahih is again from Bazanti and Rida alayhi salam, and he asked Imam alayhi salam again about these khafaf, this like sack from the leather that we don't know they are zaki or not. ما تقول في الصلاة فيه وهو لا يدري. What do you say about praying in them and he doesn't know? أيصلي فيه. Can he say his prayer there in this? Imam said نعم. Imam said yes. I also buy from market. I myself buy. It's not that I ask someone special to make for me. I also buy from market. وَيُصْنَعُ لِي. And sometimes it is made for me. So sometimes I buy from market, sometimes it's made for me. وَأُصَلِّي فِيهِ. And I say my prayer in this. وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَسْأَلَةِ. Or even in the market, maybe they used to measure and tailor, but you don't need to ask. Another hadith is Ismail ibn Isa. He says, I asked Abul Hasan alayhi salam, Imam Kazim alayhi salam, and Julud al-Fira yashtariha ar-rajul, about leathers that someone buys, but fi suqin min aswaq al-jabal, in a market in mountains. So this is not in Medina or these places. أَيَسْأَلُ عَنْ ذَكَاتِهِ إِذَا كَانَ الْبَائِعُ مُسْلِمًا غَيْرَ عَارِفٍ. Does he need to ask whether this dhibh has been happening if the seller is a Muslim but not arif, not aware? Because it's a very remote place. Maybe they don't know these masail, they don't practice in masail, They are not close to the places that they know these masail. Imam alayhi salam said, عليكم أنتم أن تسألوا عنه إذا رأيتم المشركين يبيعون ذلك. You must ask if you see those who sell it are mushrik. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمْ يُصَلُّونَ فِيهِ. But if you see the people who sell, they themselves say prayer in these things. فَلَا تَسْأَلُوا عَنْ. Don't ask them. So if they are Muslims and they themselves pray and they use these things and they treat it as tahir, then it's okay. So there are many hadiths like this that confirm the possibility of relying on Muslim market. Of course, this cannot guarantee that 100% it is halal and tahir, but it is a facility, it's a rule that we can apply to make life going. Even we have some hadith that, for example, Imam alayhi salam asked about, someone asked Imam about cheese, and sometimes they used to put in cheese something from animal, okay, from the goats, for example, something like this. They call it anfa. And Imam alayhi salam says, I myself like cheese and I buy cheese from the market. Even in one hadith, Imam says, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا أَظُنُّ كُلَّهُمْ يُسَمُّونَ. By God, I am not thinking that all these people who are butchers are saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I don't think 100%. So we know that there is a great chance, there is great possibility that some of them may not be Islamically halal, if we want to consider reality. But we follow what we say zahir, we follow what is appearing to us based on evidence which is recognized by Islam. Another thing, inshallah, we will talk about it later. For example, asalatu sihha fi fi'l al-Muslim. If a Muslim says that this dress which was najas or this carpet in the masjid which was najas, I washed it and made it clean. Sometimes you are not sure they made it properly, but you can accept it. Because we have rule of asalatu sihha fi fi'l al-Muslim. We assume that what Muslims do are okay and valid. So, these ahadith are leaving no doubt that if something is purchased in Muslim market, you can assume that that meat is halal and tahir. But if it is not Muslim market, you cannot assume it is halal and tahir. And this is different from qa'idatul tahara. Qa'idatul tahara is not for meat. Because for meat, the first assumption is that it was not halal. Because there was a time that this was part of the animal. Yeah? This meat was part of the animal. This leather was part of animal. So we have asalatu adam al-tazkiyah. So the main presumption is that it was not halal, it was not muzakka. You have to prove. So for meat, we need to prove that it is halal and it is tahir. This is different from water, from, I don't know, dress, anything that we said. If you don't know, you assume it is tahir. This is a different issue. Okay. Then, in addition to this, we have also a hadith that it is interesting, and I mentioned this hadith. Muwassaq Ishaq ibn Ammar. As you remember, last time also we had Muwassaq. Muwassaq is the one that at least one of the narrators is not Imami, is not Shia, but is reliable. He says, I asked Imam alayhi salam, and Imam alayhi salam said that if some leathers come from Yemen or are made in Islamic land, you can use them for prayer, even if you are not sure. Then he says, قُلْتُ فَإِنْ كَانَ فِيهَا غَيْرَ أَهْلِ الْإِسْلَامِ. What about those places that has mixed population? If there are non-Muslims also there and they don't believe in zabh and these type of things, Imam alayhi salam said, إِذَا كَانَ الْغَالِبُ عَلَيْهَا الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَلَا بَأْسَ. If the majority of people in that land are Muslims, then again no problem. So this is about hadith. The second thing is siraya mutasharri'ah. This is a terminology that you need to learn. Sira here means practice, conduct. In fiqh and usul al-fiqh, we have sometimes siratul uqala, sometimes we have siratul mutasharri'ah. Siratul uqala means the practice of rational people, reasonable people. Whether they are believers or not, Muslims or not, religious or not, as rational people, they do this. For example, one of the rules that inshallah we will discuss later is qa'idatul yad. If someone is selling something, he has a book, he has a laptop, he has a mobile in his hand, or he is selling some fruit, some rice, whatever. Are you 100% sure that he owns it? Maybe he's not the owner. So what do? You need to investigate. You need to ask him to provide you with certificates and documents. No. All people, Muslims, non-Muslims, when someone has control over something, has yad, hand, yad means hand, but means control. When someone has control over something and is selling, they assume that he is the owner. They don't investigate. This is siratul uqala, means practice of rational people. Okay? But sometimes we have siratul mutasharra'a, means the practice of religious people. For example, the issue of zeb is not for uqala, because uqala don't have the concept of zeb as a requirement. Part of uqala, not all uqala, part of them which are Muslims, they have this requirement. Yeah, it's not that every aqil has this. Some uqala, because they are mutasharri', they have this. So, siraya mutasharri' means the practice of religious people. Okay. Please remember this point. It's not in the book here, but it's a very good point you should know. If we know something is siraya uqala, how can we understand from that Islamic ruling from siraya uqala? We say, because Shari'a Muqaddas, Allah and then the Prophet and Imams under Allah, they themselves are uqala. So if you can establish that this was done by uqala up to their time, and they didn't stop, they didn't question, they didn't object, then we can act according to siraya uqala. So if siraya uqala is without rad'a, without prohibition of Ahlul Bayt, then it is a sign that it is approved by them. So there are two conditions. One is to make sure that this siraya uqala was at that time. Even people at that time used to do this. Secondly, that there is no objection to it. But for siraya mutasharri'a, you don't need to prove that there is no radar, because siraya mutasharri'a means religious people. So religious people, whatever they do, must have originated from instructions received from Prophet and Imams. So if you can establish that something was done by religious people in the time of Imam, then that's enough. This issue is an issue that we are sure that from the beginning of Islam was the practice of all Muslims, that they used to go and buy from butchers, from market things, and they didn't ask for proof. Okay? So, siraya mutasharri'a is also a very good proof. Another thing is, suppose if we don't want to accept this rule, it has bad consequence. Because if we don't trust Suqul Muslimin and we want to prove, and then they refuse to give you certificate or show you the proof, then you end up with you yourself slaughtering, you yourself have to make leather. So the whole life becomes, a kind of turmoil. You cannot do everything yourself. So it would lead to disorder in the Muslim economy. So, certainly this rule is to be followed and is valid. But now we have another question. What about a single shop? There is a Muslim butchery. It's not market. It's a Muslim butchery. And I want to buy from him. What do you think? The answer is, even if it's a Muslim butchery, we can trust him. Actually, the reason we trust Muslim market is because we assume the people who are there are Muslims. For us, the main thing is to get it from a Muslim hand. If you are sure that this person is Muslim, okay. If you are not sure, but you buy from a market that majority of people are, all people are Muslim, that is also a sign that this is from a Muslim. In other words, what is the primary amare or sign is yadul Muslim, Muslim hand. But taking from Muslim market is the sign for the sign. So when you buy it from a Muslim market, you don't need to make sure that they are Muslims, because this is the way it looks. So do you understand the difference? So for example, if in London we go to a butchery and we know he is Muslim, even if it's not a market, it's not bazaar, we can buy from him the meat. But you must know that he's a Muslim. But if you go to Istanbul, for example, or to Qom or Najaf, you don't need to make sure that this person is Muslim, because the market is Muslim market. Okay? So, this is the point about Suqul Muslim. Does this apply to Shia salesmen or all Muslims? The answer is all Muslims. Sunni, Shia, Hanafi, any group of Sunnis would not make any difference. And the last point, what about something that we find on, for example, floor or, on a desert, on road, something which is abandoned. For example, there is a piece of leather which is abandoned. It has no owner and has touched me, or I want to use it for prayer. Can I assume that this is also halal and tahir? Many say no, because they say that it has to come from a Muslim hand. But some say yes, because if it is from a Muslim land, then it's like Muslim market, because the people who are there are Muslim. It's like the one that we said, if the majority of people who are there are Muslims, that would be enough. So ulama here have different opinions about something which is found, abandoned, or left, and you don't know who made this. Okay, so I think alhamdulillah we covered what we wanted to say. Just I want to mention something that some ulama had the fatwa that, because most of fuqaha and maraji, they say that hilliya of meat and tahara of meat are coming together. So if you are not sure this is done with proper zebh, you cannot eat, and it is najis. But the late Ayatollah Khui had a different view. he was distinguishing between حلية and طهارة. So for حلية, he was applying أصالة عدم التذكية, but for طهارة, he was applying أصالة الطهارة. So for him, was different. So it means that if you are not sure, for example, according to him, if you have something from, for example, a shoe from leather or sofa from leather, you don't know, maybe it is done in a Muslim country, maybe not. According to him, if there is a chance that it was from a Muslim country, it's not najis. But if there is a meat and you say maybe they have imported from Muslim country, you cannot eat. But other maraja normally they say both come together. Asalatu adam al-tadhkiyah proves that it's not halal and it is not tahir unless you can prove that it is done properly, as zebh is done properly. So that's, I wanted to make this clarification. So if you have any questions, we can discuss. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
So before the questions, I know that today there will be many questions.